Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the show where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwa Kamimo. Parliament today will debate the report and the bills on electoral reforms prepared by the Joint Select Committee. If all goes according to plan, both houses will adopt the report and the reforms proposed will become law. Principals from the Opposition Alliance Court have been urging their members to support the reforms despite some complaints that their side was shortchanged. Well, to help us unpack the proposed reforms, today's guests are Senator Kipchumba Murkomen of Elgeyo Marakwet and one of Jubilee's negotiators, and from CORD, Senator Boni Halwale of Kakamega and one of the CORD negotiators. We also have with us our panelists, Mutegi Njau and Charles Odhiambo, both of Royal Media Services. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the program. You both sit in the Senate, and since you're the lawyer, Kipchumba, I'll defer to you. Give us a sense of what will happen today, what the process will be. Are we seeing the report and the bills going to a committee of the whole House? Will it, go into one House and then go to the other? What should we expect?
When it comes to the reports, all the reports will go to the two houses concurrently. It could be both houses can table it. I mean, we are tabling in the Senate in the morning because it's a special session from 9 o'clock, but the National Assembly is going to perhaps have it in the morning or afternoon because they are on session. The point is that once the report is approved, now the bills will be published. Now, according to Article 110 of the Constitution, there is a process with which the bills go through. There will be an agreement between the leadership of the houses. We have two bills. Maybe one bill can start with the Senate, and the other bill can start with National Assembly, or even both bills can go to one house, whether it's the Senate or National Assembly. Then it's processed as usual, which is that one house passes the bills, then it's forwarded to the other house. The other house will also look at it and maybe make amendments or not, and then if there will be amendments, the second house then will go through what we call mediation, and once there is an agreed version of the bill, it will be passed. But as there is already a political agreement on both sides of the political divide in the House that these bills should be passed as they are.
Okay. Yeah. Which is what the court principal Raila Odinga was saying, without a single comma.
It is actually an agreed position on both sides. Even when the president received the report, it's the same statement he issued.
So in terms of the bills we're approving, if I have them correctly, you have the Draft Elections Law Amendment Bill and the Draft Elections Offences Bill. Yes.
What happened is that in the committee, we agreed, and assisted by the Director of Public Prosecution and his office, that we should separate election offences law to be independent legislation, so that we remove all these other offences within the Elections Act and move them to an independent. And that's the practice all over the world. We redefined certain offences like treating to make it more modern as part and parcel of the elements of bribery, and so all of them put in one legislation. And remember, we had the situation of Senator Wetangula the other day. We are trying also to cure the same in the offences law, so that the person who is prosecuting takes up the responsibility of ensuring that if it is a crime, then the right person to prosecute is the DPP. We don't have to go through two processes of you are an election offence in the court, high court, and then you now go again, you must stand trial using the DPP and a criminal court, so that all of them can
everything is consolidated. Yes. So that's one of the gains. So very quickly, if we run through the recommendations of the committee, Senator Halwale, you had a thematic area 1, which was allegations against commissioners and the Secretariat of the IEBC, specifically on their credibility, impartiality, integrity, and independence. But it seems that from the recommendations, you found no culpability. The committee made no findings on the allegations against the members of the Commission and the Secretariat.
Correct. I think this is a good opportunity for me to remind the country that when we went into these discussions, we chose not to go as representatives of coalitions. We refused to go there as Jubilee, as CORD, and chose to go there as Kenya. And at no time did we resort to voting, because we wanted to build consensus on everything. So we build consensus on finding no fault about the allegations against the commissioners, for the simple reason that having listened to most of, in fact, all the people who made presentations, virtually all of them wanted the commissioners to vacate office. So we put it to the commissioners, and the commissioners graciously opted out. So we refused to now start arrogating ourselves powers beyond what we had, and said, let whoever wants to pursue this thing later do it, but our mandate was to discover how the commissioners would vacate office. They vacated, and we left it at that.
I need to correct something.
Yes.
That is English. The recommendation 1, there are people who misread the English there. We have said there, we make no findings.
Yes.
We never say we never found fault.
Right.
I mean, that is the people. We didn't interrogate the culpability of the commissioners and the secretariat. So we decided we are not making any findings for or against them. For the simple reason that Senator Halwale has said that everybody who came there said we need political settlement, and that even those who thought that there could be some culpability within the commissioners, they said, but interrogating this process may be impossible, and it may take forever, and it's not going to create any benefit for the country when it comes to the next elections. Remember also the accusations against commissioners were 2 or 3 commissioners, allegations against them. The rest of the commissioners, what were they going to do? You know, if we were going to take the others through the process. So we ultimately, once we had mini negotiation within the negotiations with the commissioners, and they said that, and they had said before, they kept saying that when both sides of the political divide agree that we can give them what is called dignified exit, which is a process that is not going to drag them through this process of fault finding and so forth, and litigation and interrogation and tribunal, then they have no problem in the best interest of the country, knowing that nobody has accused and found fault on them, even if there were allegations, then they say they would like to leave. So that recommendation, I saw some people propagating, even those who are within our committee or those who are actually supposed to be receiving the continued briefing from ourselves, arguing that we have said, and I saw even some debates in media houses where people are saying, oh, you know, we have left those people free. There are others even who are saying that we give them immunity, that there was immunity. There is absolutely no immunity.
No immunity?
Where is the immunity? We never made findings. We never arrogated ourselves that responsibility.
But you're giving them a compensation package.
Because there's no fault found on them.
But they haven't served the time.
Now that's a different negotiation.
In fact, Murkomen, what I need to add on what you're saying is that also the commissioners have a right to be defended by our community.
Absolutely.
Because they accepted to vacate instead of going into a fight, and we want to defend them to this extent that for them to now legally vacate in the so-called dignified manner, we need to find convergence between the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, the Office of the Attorney General, and the National Treasury. They cannot do it on their own. So we want to breach that and defend them. They are Kenyans. If they are criminals, our responsibility was not to establish the criminality. The other institutions that can do that will very well settle it out. We will do our bit.
So are you suggesting, therefore, that the Director of Public Prosecutions can, for instance, continue pursuing the issue of chicken gate?
If he so chooses, nothing stops him completely.
And by the way, the persons who are accused, the commissioners who are accused against the chicken gate, insisted, and they have been insisting, that they are innocent. In any case, there was even a report from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission that already cleared them. And that process is ongoing. If the DPP doesn't agree with the EACC report, it can go to the other side and so forth. But that process is independent of the exit from IEBC. It must not be concluded that they left the IEBC as a result of being found guilty, because we never found them guilty, and there is no tribunal that has found them guilty. The Committee National Assembly never found them guilty.
So their culpability was not in the roadmap to 2017?
Absolutely. Their culpability was not interrogated. And second, we have no powers to grant anybody immunity. And so when you hear people saying that we granted immunity, that is really from
Charles, if you remember, if you ever care to play back the clips of the demonstration, there was no single person or placard demanding that the IBC or commissioners be jailed. They were all saying they should vacate office.
Okay,
so we have achieved 100% of what the people wanted.
So we come to thematic area too, and we've discussed a bit of that, but the dignified vacation of the IEBC. But then you also say that that has to happen in accordance with the law within 2 weeks of the adoption of this report by the Committee of Parliament, that the current commissioners leave office when the new commissioners are sworn in, which should not be later than the end of September. And that in respect of the Secretariat of the Commission, the existing human resource policies and capacity building mechanisms of the Commission be applied as appropriate by the new Commission. So we've talked about the dignified exit. We say 2 weeks of the adoption of the report. Are we going to adopt this report?
If we adopt this report today, and we believe that we will adopt this report, you know, remember that the only thing you people saw in public was the negotiation of 14 of us and the report that came from Punifod. But there was a lot that was going on behind the scenes that involved both principals, political players in both sides. And so there is already a consensus which actually has been built. I have no doubt in my mind that the report will be adopted today. Then we will now debate the bills. As we adopt the report today, I have confidence that within 14 days, the Treasury, National Treasury, the Salary and Remuneration Commission, the what is the other body, the Attorney General, will now come up with a legal framework that will facilitate and that dignified exit of commissioners and how it would look like.
So why then, Senators, would the principal state the obvious? If they have been consulted throughout and if there is a consensus, why go to the trouble of telling people pass it without dotting the I's or crossing the T's?
And you on the other side also make sure your people pass it.
Exactly. I mean, that's so obvious. So why belabor the point?
You know, members of Parliament and senators are not robots.
Absolutely.
That can be controlled by people. They should be talked to, doubts be sorted out, clarifications be made, and that's exactly what both sides have been doing. I should emphasize here that on this one, I found a lot of magnanimity on the part of President Uhuru and on the part of Raila, together with his two other co-principals, because as Senator Murkomen has said, there were many times we asked for time out to go and report to them so that we come with fresh positions, and they allowed us a lot of latitude to achieve what we achieved. Now the issue of whether the report will pass or not, I'm 100% confident that it will pass, for the reason that the margin of passing of that report is a simple majority. So even if there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 dissenting voices, they'll still dissent, but when the vote is cast, they will lose.
So this is not tied to two-thirds?
No, it doesn't have two-thirds. Simple majority.
Although, Mutagi, you have...
What about the role of the Chepkonga committee? Or are they completely
we will come to that. I think that is in the last part of the oversight of the committee. There are people who have again misread the report. The report says that Parliament should put in place an oversight mechanism to ensure that all these issues that have been agreed upon.
Let's come to that then.
But I need to emphasize something there, that on the question of dignified exit, time is of essence. It's 2 weeks. I found it really very unacceptable to see some elements or groups within civil society organizations that want to, push for the disregarding of this process only because they are looking for vendetta.
What do you mean by vendetta?
When people say that, people should be arrested and put in jail and so forth. And, when you are a human rights defender, there are no rights that are better than the others. The rights of the commissioners and the rights of Kenyans must be balanced. Now, Kenyans have got a chance now to put in place a commission that perception-wise, even if there was not actual that those people were biased, now we will have a better opportunity to put people that perception-wise will all believe in their commission. I mean, both sides of the political divide will be comfortable with the commission.
I'll interrupt you there, because isn't the problem...
is being put with compensation of the labor rights of the commissioners.
Isn't the problem that civil society has? They feel that the work of this report endorses the culture of impunity, because as you've told us here, there are 2 or 3 commissioners who had allegations hanging over their heads. And what civil society has been arguing for is the pursuit of those allegations, the clarification of culpability or otherwise, and then we put this to bed.
I saw the people who are making presentation have gone to school or seemingly say they went to school and
okay, now you're beginning to
no, I'm just saying, yeah, no, I haven't mentioned her name. If you look at that report that says we made no findings, where do they read that we made them innocent? Yeah. You know, they can continue pursuing, and they have been pursuing for so many years.
There's something which we can learn from history. I want to appeal to those civil rights people that read the story of South Africa. When Mandela came out of prison and went into negotiation with de Klerk,
absolutely,
the blacks wanted that all the companies, all the farms of whites be taken over by black people. But Mandela ended up striking a middle ground, and that is why we have a republic called South Africa.
Absolutely.
The same thing happened in Kenya when Kenyatta went into negotiations, and they decided that the whites would not, you know, be snatched of their property and stuff like that. So that is the essence of negotiation, that you hit a middle ground.
But you know, Pony, I read mischief, because you remember 90%, let's say 90% of the presentations to the committee were from civil society organizations. I mean, you know, across and commissions, including the Commission on Human Rights and so forth. I read mischief because I think there are some actors who wanted us to continue fighting so that they can have an opportunity for them to be in business now that is an election. I think really
we have talked about the commissioners. Yes. There are calls also for disorganizing the secretariat. What is the status of the secretariat and the chief executive?
Especially particular departments like the ICT department, the legal department that was involved in the procurement.
If you look at the secretariat, if we went down to interrogating whether or not there was incompetency or allegations against the secretariat, we would now have to ask ourselves to what extent will we go. Remember, we have 1 year to the elections. The secretariat, the chief executive officer, came to office like 2 years ago, way after the elections. The IT person is only 1 year within the office. I mean, if we now continue in that trajectory, we would never have an end, because so that is why there is a proposal that says there, if there will be someone who is culpable in any way, let's not also get ourselves to the level, because Parliament approves commissioners, interrogates commissioners. Let's not take ourselves to the level of the secretariat. Leave it to a new commission that will be in place. If there will be anybody who is culpable of this mistake, it will be dealt with like in a day-to-day basis.
In accordance with existing human resource management.
So is this commission executive or non-executive? The commission we intend to have.
The commission we intend to have will have exactly the same powers like the outgoing commission, which means therefore that on the issue of the secretariat, there's nothing that is going to stop them from making a finding that the current secretariat or part of it has something to answer, and if they choose to so say because they are not zombies, they'll make professional decisions. And life will go on.
But there is something important that Charles has asked. Even in terms of segregating the responsibilities of the commission vis-a-vis the secretariat, we made a little bit of clarification in the draft bill, which says that the commission should carry out oversight and policy decisions, and then the day-to-day running of the organization is the executive, is the whatever, is the day-to-day running of making decisions should be for the secretariat. That separation is important so that the commissioners will not directly involve themselves on matters of procurement, matters of you know, day-to-day, to give them a chance not to be involved in the initial stage of procurement, so that they have a right to ask now questions and say, how did we end up making this kind of procurement? They provide that oversight. It is a delicate balance that it is an area that, although we made certain proposals, going forward we must continue making clarifications in law, because it will not only affect the IEBC, it will also affect you know, as many commissions.
So thematic areas.
Can you explain to us the composition of the people who will now choose the commissioners.
Okay, sorry. So we're coming to that. Let's just go sequentially through the recommendations, and then we can go through it. So thematic area 3, the recommendations on legal, policy, and institutional reforms to strengthen the IEBC so as to ensure free, fair elections in 2017, and they're administered in an impartial, efficient, simple, accurate, verifiable, and all of that sort of language. So you recommend that the number of commissioners be 7, and that the commissioners serve on a full-time basis. And this is a strong area of contention, and goes back to Mutegi's question about the selection panel. You recommend that for the appointment of the first commissioners after the tabling of this report, a selection panel be established and appointed by the president. Explain the English, as you were calling it, for us.
First of all, Bonnie was part and parcel of people proposed some things in that section. I'm not allowed to say but we helped us came into consensus in some of those things. And what is important in...
Why is my sister in shock?
He's giving you credit accordingly. and remember, we were haggling between having a full-time and part-time commission.
Yes, and even the numbers.
And so forth. And it was in public that court side wanted part-time, we wanted full-time, we wanted 9, they wanted 5, and so forth. So ultimately, we consulted widely across the political divide, within our principles and so forth, and we agreed that permanent commission would be better to avoid complete altering the system within 1 year before elections. It may be well that in future we'll choose part-time and 3. Remember, the Constitution allows 3 up to 9, full-time or part-time. So we settled first on full-time so that we don't alter the system completely, and people were used to having commissions. And some of us even went ahead and said, if you have 7 commissioners, you must have a chance now to have regional and ethnic balance within the 7. And even if you were to choose the previous province minus Nairobi, of course, Nairobi is almost like everybody's here. You would have a regional representation of 7 people and gender balance that is required in the law. And then the recommendation that the panel. The panel, we also had a lot, because honestly, how would you be able to sit down and agree which group is supposed to be where and so forth? We haggled on that issue for a long period of time, and we made a decision towards the end of our report and agreed on having 5 religious representatives to that panel. And then we could never agree on the other 4 until we just said, let's put it to Parliamentary Service Commission to identify 4 people, from both genders, 2 women and 2 men. We had a problem with saying this will be the norm in future, because there are people who are saying we are not a religious state to have 5 people, others are saying, oh yeah, we have a greater religious whatever. The reason why we ended up with these 5 religious representatives is because they played a critical role in bringing us together and coming together to form a commission. So we said, for now, that's why you read there, it says for the appointment of commissioners after adoption of this report, it will be so and so. But then Parliament in future can negotiate to have a more agreeable process of getting a panel.
By religious, what do you mean?
I'm saying we have I think it's written there, if I can remember, it's the NCCK, which is there, the Catholic Bishops is there,
Evangelical
Alliance is there, the Hindu and the Muslim. Muslims are using 3, because we could not agree in the committee which exactly Muslim organization should make the appointment, so we put SUPKEM, Council of Imams and NAMLEF
together. I'll come to the panelists now. We've got to take a break, but just before we go on break, Kipchumba tells us that the religious leaders were included because they helped broker this process. But if we go back in time, religious leaders in Kenya have a unfortunately dubious reputation, taking sides, being partisan, lobbying against the Constitution. So have we done ourselves a disservice? Charles Mutegi?
I think they play a major role despite that, even though they fought against the Constitution, because of gay marriages. They specifically were not in some
abortion
abortion kind of things. I think the religious organizations in this country played a major role even before independence.
Charles?
While we say we are not a religious state as such, we must admit that a big percentage of Kenyans belong to one religion or another. Probably the percentage of Kenyans who do not subscribe to a particular religion are much, much lower. And so the simple majority as it dictates, and considering what I've heard from both senators, they were working with a time frame. Their main interest is everything be done to make sure 2017 is flawless. After that, we have time to take care of everything.
And you know, the issue I've raised about the history of the church opposing the constitution, it should be understood that they were not opposing because of electoral provisions in the constitution. It was specifically the issue of right to life, the issue of gay marriages and so on. Those small social issues cannot therefore demonize the entire religious society.
After all, the constitution was passed by 70% of
Kenyans. And what is more, why we were persuaded that they were best placed is because they quickly crafted together something they called multi-sectorial forum that came with far-reaching recommendations to us that made a lot of sense. And in that forum, there were many, many players which was not just limited to the religious people.
Remember, Udwak, we are not interested in both sides of the political divide if they are genuine. Nobody's interested in having a panel that is leaning to their side. Because really, if you believe in yourself that you're going to run and compete and convince Kenyans to vote for you, you should be ready to accept an entity that is independent, because really you have no interest in stealing elections. So when we ended up sitting down, we realized that if these people were interested in bringing us together, then they must be interested in a peaceful and fair elections. So they were the closest we would compromise. I mean, tell me any other entity we would have run to if it was not for those religious
How do you respond to people who say that a lot of these religious leaders come from communities that are close to the center of power, and so therefore, in terms of their judgments, will favor the status quo?
What do you think about Reverend Joya? Do you think he's God or Jubilee? I mean, you know, there is
what do you think about Karanja?
Yeah, or Canon Karanja. I mean, the point is this, that what we must really resist is the idea that we demonize everybody because they come from community X. If President Uhuru is a Kikuyu, any Kikuyu religious leader leans with the president. If it is, I mean, we have religious leaders in Kalenjin that don't agree completely with some of us who are in Jubilee publicly. There are those who don't agree quietly because they are pursuing, middle ground on everything. So we just need to avoid. What would you say about Bishop Korir? I mean, a man who works
more comments. What my sister is saying is actually the demon called profiling people. Like unknown to the public, in the background, we had a team of experts. As the court side, the lead of our team of experts was Wachira Maina. Well, he's definitely not a lawyer. He was definitely not a Kamba. He's not a Luo. If that name betrays him, but still, he is the one who was advising us. Similarly, on the Jubilee side, there were professionals who are neither Jubilee. I mean, who are neither Kalenjin or Kikuyu. So it's a non-issue.
As we move as a country, the mistrust that really kills all of us. And I feel, I mean, if you have a Kikuyu working with Raila Odinga, they are always viewed with a lot of suspicion. If you have a Luo working with Uhuru Kenyatta, everybody is thinking that he's a Luo, he's not trustworthy. This is the Kenya we want to change. We want to reach a stage where we used to be before, where Tom Mboya was a trusted lieutenant of Jomo Kenyatta, and all these people. And Raila, I saw him saying the other day, Bildad Kakia was a trusted lieutenant of Odinga. So we need to move to a country where the politics will be around the issues and not really on.
And I want to repeat.
Would you say this in a political rally at in Elgeyo?
I say that one of my best speeches about a united Kenya that we want is in Nakuru. When we had the Jubilee, when we were thanking God for the ICC final decision, and I spoke to Kenyans, and I've always remained consistent that as a country we must deal with the demon of you've never had more comment. Nowhere, not in any forum.
How did Tom Mboya and Bildad Kagia end up?
Because they must. Kagia might have ended up poor, you know, like people say, and died poor. Tom Mboya, of course, unfortunately was assassinated. We've never been told by which side of the political divide. But the point is this: Tom Mboya at 39. Yeah, if people talk about Tom Mboya at 39, you would think he lived to 90s. Yeah. Because in the short period of his life, he was involved in major reforms of this country, and his legacy lives on. So I just want to say this, that you will never, and you've never had Murkomen say Kalwale, the Luya, Raila, the Luo, Siju, who, the what. Every time I criticize any court person, I criticize that person for his policies. I have friends across political divide, and I think this is the country we need to build.
You know, you've asked about the end of Tom Mboya and Kagia.
Yeah.
I know what you're suggesting. But the truth is...
What am I suggesting?
Yes, the truth, you'll hear me. But the truth is, foolish you, who thinks that there are any other different ways of ending up. Kagia ended up dead.
Yeah.
Mboya ended up dead. And so did Kenyatta end up dead. You'd all die. That's how it ends.
You can't take for granted how you die. You know? You can't take that for granted. How do you die?
No. The point Bonnie is making is that, and I have made this point before, that for those of you who want to end anybody's life, or you think that you want to make others live miserable, there is only one price at the end of the day. There is no escape on the fact that we will all leave this world. The point is that those who killed Tom Mboya never received the legacy and the appreciation of what Tom Mboya did and achieved.
Okay, so we have to take a break now. We're live on Citizen TV. This is Cheche. Will Parliament adopt the report and build on electoral reforms? The hashtag on Twitter is Cheche.